More on all this. Let's bring in Matt Pottinger, former Deputy National Security Advisor in the Trump administration. First of all, Matt, wonderful to see you. Thanks for coming back on the show. And I want to ask you, I don't know how closely you followed this. No one wants to talk about this. Maybe it's not important. But on an ABC News interview yesterday, Zelensky said that Ukraine will no longer seek right now NATO membership. And with respect to the Donbass region, he said we can discuss that and find a compromise. But he said they'll no longer seek a NATO membership, which I thought was one of the underpinning reasons for U.S. support.
Larry, it's great to be with you. You know, I think that that Zelensky is negotiating, right? It's like Clausewitz said, that war is politics by other means. I imagine that one of the reasons why he may have put that on the table, the idea of not seeking NATO membership, was also to put the lie to those who believe that this is fundamentally about NATO expansion. I think that Zelensky knows that this is really more about the fact that Vladimir Putin does not want to abide a democratic, independent state on his border, because it gives him nightmares that there might be a color revolution someday inside his own borders in Russia. So this is more about the nature of governance in the sphere of influence that Putin is trying to build, the nature of democratic governance on his border in Ukraine, as opposed to fears about this NATO boogeyman.
So does that embolden Putin or not? How does Putin react to that? Because they're fencing around. There are talks. The talks have come to nothing so far. Nobody believes Putin on humanitarian help or any of these matters. But I just wondered, does this make Putin more aggressive or less aggressive?
Yeah, we don't know. I mean, Putin is he's unpredictable. It's clear that he miscalculated. I think that he thought that this was going to be a short, decisive war. That, by the way, is a very common mistake that leaders make. It's a common mistake that dictators make and that democratically elected leaders alike often make. And so whether he's going to look for some kind of an off-ramp soon, it doesn't seem to be in his nature. He's stated that his goal is to take all of Ukraine, so it's hard to imagine that he'll accept less than half a loaf right now. I think he's going to try to press forward in Kiev. It may mean the destruction of Kiev before he is willing to really sit down and negotiate a peace.
Matt, equally unsavory topics. The Biden administration, which is waging a jihad against fossil fuels here at home, has decided that Iran and Venezuela can help us. Two great pals of the United States, two great supporters of freedom and democracy, two world role models to help us with the oil. What you make of that, Matt Pottinger?
Look, I heard a State Department spokesperson trying to say that, look, Iran has nothing to do with the situation developing in Ukraine, the situation between Russia and Ukraine, but like hell it doesn't. like hell these things are distinct and separate. You have to put yourselves in the shoes of a dictator, right? Everything that we do sends a signal of some kind. And if you're Vladimir Putin, if you're Xi Jinping, if you're Kim Jong-un for that matter, who's just started testing long-range missiles again, they will view this Iran deal that's about to happen as a sign of weakness. It's a sign that we weren't willing to maintain a 4-year maximum pressure strategy. We've put a lot of pressure on Maduro, his criminal regime in Venezuela. Now it looks like we're going there to beg for oil. So I worry that this is really going to be interpreted as a sign of weakness in the eyes of Vladimir Putin, a Kim Jong-un, an Ayatollah, and of course, Xi Jinping.
Yeah, and of course, Venezuela, which is financed by Russia and run by the Cuban Secret Service, I mean, that's an incredible story that we would go down there and meet with them about oil or whatever. Incredible.
These are criminal regimes,
right.
And, at the end of the day, Vladimir Putin is going to make a decision based on how much bitterness he thinks he's going to have to eat before he's able to achieve a reset, like we famously pursued right after the 2008 Russian invasion of Georgia. a new administration came in and offered a reset button. After 2014, when he took the eastern part of Ukraine and Crimea, there was a new administration that came in the form of the Biden administration that made unilateral concessions to Vladimir Putin at the outset of the Biden administration, signing a New START treaty without any concessions on nuclear weapons, easing off of the provision of lethal weapons to Ukraine, easing off the pressure to stop the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. So these are all signals. They're signals about will. And at the end of the day, to quote Clausewitz again, this is it's the chief incalculable in war. The thing that determines the outcomes of wars more than any other factor is will. And these meetings that our government is having with the Iranians, with the Venezuelans, don't send the proper message about American will.
Last one, Matt, quickly. I guess the Communist Party is having its big Congress or whatever. Xi is running for his third term or fourth term or whatever term. He's looking at this whole story. How is his situation affected, and how's the Taiwan situation affected, in your view?
Yeah, so we've got to be really clear-headed about the role that China's playing in this entire war that Putin is pursuing against his neighbor, this unprovoked war. Xi Jinping knew in advance about the war. He knew about it when he and Putin signed their 5,000-word communique announcing that they are stronger than Cold War allies, saying that there are no limits to their cooperation with one another. Even the New York Times is reporting that Xi and Putin discussed timing of a war. So it's really important that the Europeans, as well as the U.S. Administration, don't offer China a mediator role, a peacemaker role, when in fact they're a co-conspirator. They're underwriting this war. Now, when it comes to Taiwan, obviously Xi Jinping is reading what's happening right now very carefully. He's noticed that we followed through with very tough sanctions. Sanctions are necessary but insufficient to prevent a war against Taiwan. These are hard men, Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping. They've got a lot in common. And at the end of the day, they're going to respect force and capability and will.
But maybe
that means military capability on the part of Taiwan, on the part of the United States,
but Matt,
Japan,
they might think twice.
And Australia.
Xi might think twice. We've made Putin and Russia a pariah. We have hurt them financially. China is stronger than Russia financially. I get that. But I don't know. I'm just wondering. They might think twice about invading Taiwan. Last point.
Yeah, well, as the Chinese say, their phrase is to think three times, think thrice. and look, these sanctions are a pretty negative indicator. If I were planning a war against Taiwan, I'd think about the colossal effects on my own economy. But at the end of the day, American force, credible, capable force, is what can prevent a war this decade over Taiwan.
Matt Pottinger, thank you. Really appreciate it. Talk soon.